25 hours of complete darkness in the city of New York. Central Park has a reputation as a site for muggings and rapes. The subway is unsafe due to the high crime rates and frequent mechanical failures. Visitors receiving pamphlets to stay away from the city of New York. This is not the city you want to live in. That is exactly what the residents of New York City felt. 1 million residents left the city of New York. New York City is becoming infamous for all the wrong reasons. The damage is so high that the city's government is almost filing for bankruptcy.
For 2 days, more than 7 million people were left in the dark. 1,600 stores were looted, and almost 4,000 people were arrested.
It is the early 1970s. New York City was going through a particularly bad socio-economic challenge. Immediately after World War II, New York City became known as one of the world's greatest cities. However, after peaking in population in 1950, the city began to feel the effects of suburbanization. There was a downturn in industry as businesses left for places where it was cheaper and easier to run. There were jolting economic shocks as the post-war prosperity ended with many factories and entire industries shutting down. Homeless people and drug dealers occupied boarded up and abandoned buildings. An increase in crime and an upturn in its welfare burden, all of which reached a nadir in the city's fiscal crisis of 1970s, when it barely avoided defaulting on its obligations and declaring bankruptcy. Drastic measures were needed to stop this decline. Enter three characters who not only stopped the socio-economic downfall of New York City, but in the process created the most celebrated destination marketing campaigns in the history of modern advertising and public relations. John Dyson, Mary Wells Lawrence, Milton Glaser. When Dyson took over the office as the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Commerce, he was charged with the task of improving the economic condition of New York. He quickly found that tourism is the best way to improve the situation. After all, travelers can decide to come to a destination today, arrive tomorrow. This, in turn, would help small businesses earn more revenue, thus improving the revenue from taxes for the state and the city. Dyson appointed William S. Doyle, a marketeer working at Chase Manhattan Bank, on loan to the position of Deputy Commissioner for the New York State Department of Commerce. Doyle faced quite a different kind of challenge. Out of the 50 states in the US, New York State had the lowest budget for the DOC's travel bureau. It was only $200,000 or $0.8 per capita. Doyle knew his tourism marketing plan would need to be backed by world-class research before it can be presented to the skeptical state legislature. So he turned to Consumer Behavior Inc. and spent the entire marketing budget on consumer research. Research found out that there was an urgent need to promote New York State as a holiday destination in the most attention-grabbing manner. With these research findings, Doyle convinced the state legislature to run an advertising and PR campaign to uplift the public image of New York. The next step was to find an advertising firm which would be entrusted with running such a campaign. Out of the many agencies which were present during that time in Madison Avenue, Wells Rich Green was selected. At the time, the founding president, Mary Lawrence, took up the challenge as she wanted to help the city which has made her climb to the top of the ad world. Doyle, along with Mary, knew they would need a logo which could spark pride, honor, and a sense of ownership associated with New York. They turned to Milton Glaser. Born of Hungarian Jewish immigrant parents, Glaser spent his childhood in South Bronx, New York. He was the perfect individual living the ethos of New York. Wells Rich Green, the advertising firm, roped in Steve Carman to compose the theme music for the campaign. In the spring of 1977, the tourism marketing plan was presented to the state legislature. It got approved. The budget was increased to $4.3 million with the promise of generating $8 million in revenue. With an increased budget, a star-studded theme, the campaign of I Love New York was launched in 1977. It had to deliver results. It had to deliver them fast. And it did, in many ways. In the summer months of 1977, that is the first year of the campaign, 1.6 million more visitors were recorded in the state of New York. The campaign became a hit. It aligned with the spirit of the people. In 1978, piggybacking from the success of the campaign, the budget for promoting it was increased from $4 million to $10 million. By the end of 1980, tourism-related expenditure generated over 250,000 jobs. Broadway ticket sales went up by 40%. In January of 1984, at the annual meeting of the New York State Travel and Vacation Association, it was declared that since its start, the I Love New York campaign had generated more than $381 million in direct and indirect tax revenue. I Love New York had delivered on the promise with which it was launched. When a city like New York was in complete disarray with violent crimes, frequent strikes, and abject unemployment, a remedy was needed. It needed to work quickly. Research came to the rescue. Understanding how the public's feeling of New York as a city and as a state was. Understanding that a destination is supposed to be thought of as a product. Designing communication that will enhance the public image of the product. Without the $200,000 being spent on research by Consumer Behavior Inc., the I Love New York campaign may never have been designed. When designing your next campaign, remember, the key is in research. If and once done right, you can find the answer the audience wants to hear. Designing a communication from the research would become much easier. Do not design campaigns in the boardroom. Go out and talk to your audience. They always have the answer to your questions. I Love New York is one of the best destination marketing tourism campaigns that has far-reaching impacts than just promoting the city and state. It made New York an emotion.